لڑا اور پھر آپ نے جس طرح یونائٹڈ نیشن میں بچر آف گجرات کا ذکر کیا اور آپ کے خلاف وہاں پر بھارت میں مظاہرے ہوئے، شاید میرا خیال ہے کہ آپ پاکستان کے شہید بھٹو کے بعد واحد لیڈر ہیں جن کے خلاف بھارت میں مظاہرے ہوئے اور کشمیریوں کے آپ کے حق میں مظاہرے ہوئے مقبوضہ کشمیر میں. تو اس لیے ہم آپ کا انتہائی شکر گزار ہیں. اور جس طرح دوستوں نے کہا کہ آپ خود نہیں بلکہ آپ کی والدہ، آپ کے والد اور شہید ذوالفقار علی بھٹو نے یہ کشمیر کا مقدمہ سب سے پہلے لڑا اور کہا کہ ہم 1000 سال تک کشمیر کی جنگ لڑیں گے. 1000 سال مینز ایک سمبولکلی انہوں نے کہا کہ وہ آخر دم تک کشمیر کا جو مقدمہ ہے وہ لڑیں گے. اور آج خصوصی طور پر ہم آپ کے اس لیے بھی شکر گزار ہیں کہ آپ آج G20 کی جو کانفرنس سری نگر میں بھارت نے بلوائی ہے وہ آج آپ یہاں مظفر آباد میں آ کے، اور یہ ہماری بیس کیمپ کا اسمبلی ہے، یہاں آ کر اس کا جواب دے رہے ہیں. اور یہ اس کا تسلسل ہے جس پر آپ نے یہ کہا تھا کہ 5 اگست 2019 کہ جب تک وہ سٹیپس ریووک نہیں ہوں گے، بھارت سے کوئی ڈائلاگ نہیں ہوں گے، تو اس کے بعد سے 5 اگست 2019 سے لے کے بھارت نے وہاں مقبوضہ کشمیر کی ڈیموگرافی کو چینج کیا. وہاں پر فیک ڈیموسائل 42 لاکھ فیک ڈیموسائلز دیے تاکہ ان کو وہاں پر آباد کیا جا سکے اور وہاں پر آبادی کا تناسب تبدیل کیا جا سکے. اس لیے اور اسی طرح انہوں نے وہاں ڈیلیمیٹیشنز کی، اگرچہ آل پارٹی حریت کانفرنس وہاں کے فارسیکل اور فراڈولنٹ الیکشن میں حصہ نہیں لیتی، لیکن پھر بھی وہ یہ چاہتے ہیں اب کہ وہاں پر کوئی ہندو وزیر اعلیٰ بنا دیا جائے تاکہ دنیا کو دکھایا جائے کہ وہاں ہندوؤں کی بہت بڑی آبادی ہے. اور یہ G20 بھی اسی سلسلے کا تسلسل ہے کہ وہ وہاں پر یہ G20 کی کانفرنس کروا کے دنیا کو بتانا چاہتے ہیں کہ وہ ایک پرامن علاقہ ہے، وہاں کوئی ایشو نہیں ہے. حالانکہ وہ جسے چائنا نے بھی کہا اور آپ کی کوششوں سے بے شمار دیگر ممالک بھی اس کا بائیکاٹ کر رہے ہیں، وہ بھی یہ کہہ رہے ہیں کہ یہ ڈسپیوٹڈ ٹیریٹری ہے، یہ اٹس اگینسٹ انٹرنیشنل لا اور اٹس اگینسٹ دا یونائٹڈ نیشنز ریزولوشنز. تو اس اعتبار سے وہ ان کی جو کوشش ہے اور وہ وہاں پہ G20 کی جو وہاں پہ وہ کانفرنس کر رہے ہیں وہ بنیادی طور پہ ٹورزم کی پروموشن کے لیے کر رہے ہیں. حالانکہ there are 900,000 troops in occupied Kashmir and they have sent more troops for G20 in occupied Kashmir, and because of their subjugation, oppression, suppression in occupied Kashmir, how the hell they can say that there could be tourism in occupied Kashmir when you are making occupied Kashmir as Hitler's death camp? So we will, and your presence here will give a good message to them. And all the Kashmiri want the implementation of UN resolutions, which clearly says that the future of Kashmir has to be determined according to the free will and the aspirations of the people of Kashmir. تو اس میں کوئی ایسی بڑی بات نہیں ہے، لیکن there are some rumors. کچھ میڈیٹرز بھی بات کرتے ہیں، اور آج میرے جو ممبر ہیں حسن ابراہیم صاحب راولہ کوٹ سے، انہوں نے بھی ذکر کیا کہ کچھ شاید تقسیم کشمیر کی بات ہے. I assure you, as President of Azad Kashmir, categorically, unequivocally, and explicitly, that there will be no division of Kashmir. There will be only implementation of UN resolutions when the people of Kashmir get their future. Then there were times when India used to claim the largest democracy in the world. They used to claim as a secular state during the times of Jawaharlal Nehru and Mahatma Gandhi, and some people internationally took them hypocritically. But however, Modi has exposed India. So it's not only that there are 900 troops committing human rights violations in occupied Kashmir, but what India is doing to the minorities in India, to the Sikhs, to the Christians, to the Gorkhas, and even untouchables, the low cost of the Hindus. So now they are also committing human rights violations in occupied Kashmir, and this is law of nature, that one extreme has to follow another extreme. And when Soviet Union occupied Afghanistan and Gorbachev was there, Soviet Union was disintegrated and now they were confined into Russia. So now this is time when India is going to disintegrate it as well, what they are doing in India. And one thing I make it clear, that India has never been a country on ideological basis. India is like a geographical expression, like Latin America, like Scandinavia, like Balkan states. So that was not ever a country as such. But Pakistan came into being on ideology, the dream seen by Allama Iqbal and implemented by Quaid-e-Azam Muhammad Ali Jinnah. So Pakistan is a country, and whatever problems we have, whatever obstacles we have, whatever difficulties we have, whatever terrorism we have, inshallah, as Quaid-e-Azam Muhammad Ali Jinnah has once said, Pakistan is going to be the greatest nation in the world, and now the time has come that Pakistan will be the greatest nation in the world. So I don't want to go further and in more detail, except that we trust you as the foreign minister. We don't think you only as a foreign minister of Pakistan. We think you as the ambassador of Kashmir, and you will continue, inshallah, I suppose, in that. And as some of my friends have said, especially our leader of the House has said, whatever differences we have, whichever we party belong to, whatever groups we are one when the liberation of Kashmir is concerned. Thank you very much.
बहुत शुक्रिया जनाब सदर ग्रामी। अब मैं जनाब बिलावल भुट्टो जरदारी वज़ीर ख़ारजा इस्लामी जमहूरिया पाकिस्तान को दावत देता हूं कि वो कानून साज असम्बली आज़ाद जम्मू व कश्मीर के ऐवान से खिताब फरमाएं।
बिस्मिल्लाहिर्रहमानिर्रहीम। जनाब डेप्यूटी स्पीकर साहब, सदर साहब, वज़ीर आज़म साहब, मैं आपका शुक्रगुजार हूँ कि आपने मुझे ये तारीख़ी मौका फराहम किया है कि मैं पाकिस्तान का पहला वज़ीर ख़ारजा हूँ जो आज़ाद कश्मीर असम्बली से मुखातिब हूँ। एंड इट इज़ ट्रूली एन ऑनर एंड अ प्रिविलेज फॉर मी टू स्टैंड बिफोर यू हियर टुडे। साथ साथ मैं जम्मू कश्मीर पीपल्स पार्टी का इब्राहिम साहब, पीटीआई पाकिस्तान तरीके साफ आज़ाद कश्मीर का साबिक वज़ीर आज़म और नियाज़ी साहब का शुक्रगुजार हूँ। मैं मुस्लिम कॉन्फ्रेंस का सरदार अतीक साहब आपका शुक्रगुजार हूँ। मुस्लिम लीग नून का साबिक वज़ीर आज़म और आपका पार्टी का सदर का शुक्रगुजार हूँ। कायदे हिज़्ब इख्तिलाफ आपका भी शुक्रगुजार हूँ। और साथ साथ उम्मीद रखता हूँ, जैसे ऑनरेबल मेंबर साहब ने पॉइंट उठाया कि आपके यहाँ जल्द जो स्पीकर इलेक्शंस हैं वो मुकम्मल होंगे ताकि कायदे हिज़्ब इख्तिलाफ का जगह भी जिनका हक है उनके पास जा सकता है। तो मैं तो मैं आप सबका आज को पूरा वक्त जैसे मैं आप सबके तकरीरें सुन रहा था, मैं सोच रहा था कि मैं तो पाकिस्तान के जो नेशनल असेंबली है उसका मेंबर रहा हूं, अब 4 साल, अभी 5 साल होने जा रहे हैं, और शायद कभी ऐसा एक दिन नहीं था जहां कायदे हिज़्ब इख्तिलाफ मेंबर्स ऑफ द ऑपोजिशन और वज़ीर आज़म इस अंदाज से और इस तरीके से जिस मैच्योरिटी के साथ इस अहम मौके पे हम सब यहाँ मौजूद हैं आज अक्रॉस द पॉलिटिकल स्पेक्ट्रम। मैं समझता हूँ कि कश्मीर के जो नुमाइंदे हैं उन्होंने साबित किए हैं कि पाकिस्तान के नुमाइंदे के मुकाबले में आप ज़्यादा मैच्योर हैं, ज़्यादा सीरियस हैं, और इस वक्त आपका असेंबली हमारा असेंबली से बेहतर चल रहे हैं, तो इस चीज़ का भी मैं आपको मुबारक देना चाहूँगा। अब आप मुझे इजाज़त अगर देंगे, मुझे अंग्रेज़ी में जो फॉरेन ऑफिस का स्टेटमेंट है और हमारा पॉलिसी है इस दिन के मौके पे वो आपके सामने रखता हूँ। आई एम हियर टुडे टू एक्सप्रेस solidarity with you, solidarity with the people of Kashmir at this critical juncture. Mr. Speaker, Jammu and Kashmir dispute is the unfinished agenda of the partition of the subcontinent. The rights and aspirations of the Kashmiri people were trampled upon by machinations and intrigue. The territory of Azad, Jammu and Kashmir, where we congregate today, was liberated at the cost of enormous sweat and blood. We have not forgotten the massacre of Muslims in Jammu region in 1947. They were among the first martyrs of your movement. Mr. Speaker, history cannot be changed. Ironically today, as India deviously tries to convince the world that Jammu and Kashmir is but an undisputed part of her territory. But history remembers that it was India that took the Jammu and Kashmir dispute to the Security Council as a dispute yet to be resolved. There, the disputed status of Jammu and Kashmir was internationally recognized, and it was decided that the final disposition of the state shall be made through a free and impartial plebiscite under the UN auspices. For more than 7 decades now, the Kashmiri people have been denied their inalienable right. Today, I ask the world if a country can be allowed to renege on its solemn commitments to the United Nations, break its own promises, and blatantly violate international law just because they want to. I must emphasize here that the commitments under the UN Security Council resolutions are sacrosanct. They are neither servile to the whims of a jingoistic political party, nor diluted by the passage of time. India's continued denial of the rights of the Kashmiri people is a wrongful, illegal act. No amount of diplomatic duplicity or Indian state-perpetrated terror can change this fact. India will have to fulfill its obligations to the Security Council by granting the Kashmiri people their lawful right to self-determination. Mr. Speaker, today, an occupied Kashmir has become an open prison, a prison where Kashmiri Muslims are forced to breathe fear, thousands of them killed, disappeared, or blinded, their lands grabbed, their properties confiscated or bulldozed, their culture disintegrated, their media muzzled. The occupying Indian forces run rampant with arbitrary detentions, torture, extrajudicial killings of Kashmiri Muslims. This mayhem continues under draconian laws allowing complete impunity for the Indian occupying forces. This wretched, perpetual and systemic Indian barbarism not just violates international law, it makes a mockery of the accepted norms of fundamental human rights. I ask those who champion the rules-based international order and place a premium on protecting and promoting human rights, how can they turn a blind eye to this savagery? It is indeed not wise to sacrifice these timeless principles for short-term interests. One cannot wax lyrical about international law and the United Nations Security Council resolutions in Europe, in the European context, and then turn a blind eye to the violation of the same international law in the Kashmiri context. Mr. Speaker, India's unilateral and illegal actions of August 5th, 2019 opened a new chapter of oppression. India's ultimate aim is to convert Kashmiris into a dispossessed and disempowered minority in their own land. The fresh delimitations, domicile certificates to millions of outsiders, and addition of millions of temporary residents to the voters' lists are part of a well-thought-out strategy to change Kashmir's demography and its political landscape. Pakistan outrightly rejects these unilateral and illegal steps. How can the world be a silent bystander when a large country usurps the rights guaranteed by the Security Council and instead use brute force to suppress those rights? Isn't it the same world that is upholding these principles elsewhere while remaining completely oblivious to them in Kashmir? Mr. Speaker, as we speak, India is hosting the meeting of a tourism working group in Srinagar. Meetings of a consultative forum on youth affairs, Y20, has already been held in Jammu, Leh and Srinagar in the past few weeks. This is yet another display of India's arrogance on the world stage. Indian occupation of a territory that is recognized as disputed under international law. India is misusing its position as chair of the G20, a forum created to address global financial and economic issues with utter disregard for the Security Council resolution, the UN Charter, and its principle. India's facade of normalcy in Kashmir is met by the harsh reality that occupied Kashmir remains one of the most militarized zones on the planet. Mr. Speaker, normal areas are not under siege by millions of troops. Normal areas are not operated under so-called governor's rule. Normal areas do not have unidentified graves and half windows. In normal areas, people are allowed to travel abroad, and journalists are free to report. How can India possibly claim that normalcy has returned to Kashmir? I wish to remind the Indian leaders that unilateral steps in Jammu and Kashmir can neither accord legitimacy to their occupation nor suppress the true sentiments of the Kashmiri people. Gimmickry cannot replace legitimacy. If India wants to be a superpower, Mr. Speaker, then India must start acting like a superpower. The United Nations Special Rapporteur on Minority Affairs speaks clearly on the Srinagar meeting that and claims that India is providing, quote, a veneer of support to a facade of normalcy. ये मेरे अल्फाज नहीं है जनाब स्पीकर, ये यूनाइटेड नेशंस के जो स्पेशल रैपरटोर है अक़लियत अफेयर्स के लिए, ये उनके अल्फाज हैं. Pointing out the blatant human rights violations in occupied Kashmir, he has drawn an apt conclusion that the situation in Jammu and Kashmir should be, quote, decried and condemned, not pushed under the rug and ignored. Mr. Speaker, I remind the world that there are two reports on the situation in occupied Kashmir by the Office of the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights, issued in 2018 and 2019. Those of us who are interested in upholding human rights are morally bound to pay attention to these reports. Mr. Speaker, the world The word Pakistan is incomplete without Kashmir. The people of Pakistan and the people of Kashmir have a unique affinity based on geographical proximity, shared history, commonality of religion. We have shared joys, shared sorrows, we share the same hopes, the same dreams, our hearts beat as one. Pakistan cannot ignore what happens in Jammu and Kashmir. It is a party to the dispute. For us, it is not a matter of choice. We are duty-bound to play our role in the just and peaceful resolution of the Jammu and Kashmir dispute in accordance with the UN Security Council resolutions and the wishes of the people of Kashmir. Mr. Speaker, my presence here today is a testimony of our nation's intergenerational support and lasting commitment to the Kashmir cause. We want good relations with our neighbors, including India. However, good relations can only be achieved through dispute resolution and not through dispute denialism. Durable peace in South Asia remains contingent upon the settlement of the Jammu and Kashmir dispute. Despite our consistent advocacy for constructive engagement and result-oriented dialogue to resolve all outstanding issues, including the core issue of Jammu and Kashmir, India unabatedly remains hostile. Its regressive actions have in fact further vitiated the environment, and the onus, therefore, remains on India to take the necessary steps to create an enabling environment conducive for a meaningful and result-oriented dialogue. During my recent visit to Goa to attend the SCO meeting, I repeatedly said that India would have to revert to the situation on the 4th of August 2019 to work out a way forward. Mr. Speaker, India has also been trying to use the terrorism bogeyman to mask the indigenous Kashmiri struggle for their legitimate rights to self-determination. It uses the same bogey to blame Pakistan and justify its brutal repression of the Kashmiri people. This is a complete travesty of justice. There is a clear distinction between terrorism and a people's genuine quest for freedom. Terrorism cannot be and should not be used as an excuse to deny the Kashmiri people their fundamental rights and their fundamental freedoms. Mr. Speaker, I also want to emphasize that the belligerent Indian statements about Azad Kashmir and Gilgit-Baltistan should be raising alarm bells across the world. These are not isolated statements. They epitomize a political party that nurtures and hones fascist majoritarianism and religious jingoism. If 1 billion people are economically and politically incentivized into hate-mongering, the results can be disastrous. We could be sleepwalking towards South Asia's Armageddon. Notwithstanding India's military and political rhetoric, Pakistan has exercised maximum restraint. Pakistan does not want another conflict. However, it has the will and capacity to respond forcefully and effectively and defend resolutely against any act of aggression. जनाब स्पीकर, जितना चाय पीना चाहते हैं हम उनको पिला सकते हैं. हम अपना वतन दफा करना जानते हैं. Janab Speaker, justice delayed is justice denied. I appeal to all men and women of conscience across the world to urge the occupying forces of India to 1. Rescind its unilateral and illegal actions of the 5th of August 2019 and the subsequent steps. 2. Implement fully the relevant UN Security Council resolutions and allow the Kashmiri people to freely exercise their right to self-determination through a UN-supervised plebiscite. 3. To provide solemn assurances that it will not change the occupied territory's demographic composition and not allow non-Kashmiris to acquire property or residency in Jammu and Kashmir. 4. To halt its human rights violations in occupied Jammu and Kashmir. 5, to repeal its draconian emergency laws, withdraw its heavy military presence from Kashmiri cities, towns, and villages. And 6, to provide unhindered access to UN, OHCHR, OIC, and human rights organizations and international media to investigate, report on the situation in occupied Kashmir. Mr. Speaker, I salute the courage of the Kashmiri people and I pay tribute, rich tribute, to the martyrs. I offer my sincere sympathies to the population living close to the line of control, who have suffered enormously. I assure the Kashmiri people of Pakistan's unstinted moral, diplomatic, and political support. We have stood by them for decades, and I assure you that we will stand for as long